everybody, I'm Angie Larson. I get to serve as the executive pastor here at Calvary, and I'm so honored that you are worshiping with us today. Today we're in the third week of our worship series called If God is Love. Today we're going to talk about how to love other people. I mean, it sounds really easy when we say it, but it's really kind of a difficult thing. But yet, if God is love and we are God's beloved, then it's our kind of responsibility to share that love with the world, even if it's difficult. If you've missed any of the messages in this worship series, I want to encourage you to go back on our YouTube channel and catch up. It's been a really fun series to do together. So today, the third week of If God is Love, I'm so honored that you're here. Welcome to church.
What is love? What is love?
I have no idea.
What is love?
Love is when you love somebody. And it's when you love somebody, and it's really when you love somebody.
What do you think it feels like to be in love?
It feels like heaven.
What do people who are in love with each other do?
They be gross.
What does that mean?
They kiss, they be gross.
If you're not in love and you want to be, what should you do to find someone?
Go to a woman casino.
What about Tinder? Do you think that's a good way to meet people?
Tinder. Maybe. If it's chicken, we probably. They would probably like it.
Chicken Tinder?
Yeah. I like it a lot. I like it.
Yeah, it's fun to have on a date.
Yep.
Do any of your friends at school have boyfriends?
I don't know that answer. My friend pretended she did, but it was just a stuffed animal.
That's weird, right?
It was funny. Because after school, who knows what happens with him?
And I like to do it all the time.
You like to do what all the time?
Play with my Legos.
Do you like girls?
Yeah.
Do you have a girlfriend?
Yes.
Who is she?
Isabella.
And what do you like about her?
Her hair. She has beautiful toys.
Is there anyone you have a crush on?
It's a secret. I'm not telling anybody.
So is she your girlfriend?
No. But she's beautiful.
What do you like about her besides that she's beautiful?
She's just beautiful.
Is there any boy you have a crush on at school?
No.
How did you know you were in love with her?
When I met her in kindergarten, she was just so beautiful, and she had long hair. She was just so beautiful. I'm not really into that stuff anymore.
Like what stuff?
Like marrying stuff anymore. I feel like I want to be single now.
And what about like for the rest of your life or just now?
Just at the moment. I'm not sure about maybe when I get older.
You just want to focus on yourself and your career.
Yeah.
What is love?
I can do kicks.
I'll see the kick. Wow. And that's what love is?
Yeah.
All right.
So my son Chase, growing up, tried all kinds of sports. Well, not hockey, because we didn't live in Minnesota at the time. But growing up, he played soccer, he played football, he tried snowboarding for a while, he ran track and threw the shot put, he played baseball for a year. But for a couple of years in high school, he decided that he wanted to play lacrosse. That's right, he wanted to play lacrosse. And lacrosse was brand new in Iowa where we were living, and our school that he attended, it didn't have a lacrosse team, but a school down the road, they had a lacrosse team, and they really needed players. So I gave him a call, and they said yes, they would love to have him play for their lacrosse team. But their team, it was just enough for one team with no substitutes at all, just enough guys. Now, lacrosse, it's this really interesting sport because it's kind of like a hockey, soccer, football, and maybe tennis kind of all combined into one. You have this stick that has this net on top, and you sort of play catch all the way down the field with the lacrosse stick and the lacrosse ball, which is about the size of a tennis ball. But here's the thing. If you have the lacrosse ball in your lacrosse net, you can get tackled like football by the other team. It's like they come running at you a million miles an hour. They go running at you like a freight train, so you want to like throw that ball really quickly. And so to watch lacrosse, it's a really fast, really exciting kind of sport. It's very, very physical. And as I was watching one of Chase's lacrosse games, one of his teammates sort of had the ball and he was just about to throw it when all of a sudden, from nowhere, this really big, quick guy came and plowed into him from the other team, knocking our kid straight onto the ground. It was one of those moments when everybody who was on the sidelines was watching went, oh, ouch. I mean, it was clear that this kid who had gotten plowed into was hurt. He was hurt badly. And he laid there for a while. And as he laid there, the kids, they took a knee and the whistle blew from the officials. And after he laid there for a bit, the coaches came over and then they checked on him. And the parents of the kid got up and went onto the field to check on him too. And when he finally stood up after laying on the ground, which felt like a really long time, when he finally stood up, you could tell that he was in pain, that he was hurting. He was kind of hobbling and wincing, not really putting any pressure on his leg at all. And you could see that he was trying to catch his breath with all his might. And if you looked really close, you could see tears streaking down this tough high school kid's face. But here's the thing. We had no subs at all for this lacrosse team. There were just enough guys for us to play the game. And this kid knew that. If he didn't play, then our team would have to forfeit and lose the game. And he kept looking at his parents and his coaches back and forth and back and forth. And even though he's hobbling right there in the middle of the field, he said, I want to play. I want to play. I want to play. And those of us who were sitting on the sidelines after he got up and decided he wanted to play, we kind of gave him that like encouragement clap, like, okay, let's see how this goes. But I'll be honest, it was hard to watch him play with all that limping and kind of wincing at every moment. He was trying to be as much as he could in the game, but also at the same time, we all didn't want him to get hurt any farther. You see, he kept playing that game hurt. He was playing hurt. It was just a few days after I lost my mom to her long cancer battle. I had a required volunteer shift for one of my daughter Mackenzie's jazz choir competitions. And now I'm a committed mom, if I'm nothing else in the world. And so I went to fulfill my required volunteer shift. My job for this volunteer shift was to guard the doors to the auditorium and to not let anyone go through those doors if it was in the middle of a performance. So they had to only go in between sets so that they wouldn't disrupt the judges or the performers. And my shift volunteering there was going really, really well until I was nearly done with my shift. And all of a sudden, I'm standing there in front of the doors, and a man comes up to me, and he said, I need to get in there to see my daughter. And so I did my job, and I said, I'm sorry, sir. You're just going to have to wait to the end of the set, and then you can go ahead and enter. Because this was the one job I was given in my required volunteer shift. And then this man, he said a bad word at me, and he pushed me aside, not super aggressively, but enough. And he opened the door and he stormed right into the performance hall. Now, under normal circumstances, I would have thought like, okay, that guy is an idiot and not nice. But because of the recent grief of losing my mom, this little interaction with this guy that I had, it broke me down to tears. Like all of a sudden, I was standing there crying and sobbing with this, and the people, they were looking at me and this experience with the rude guy, and I'm sure they thought that I was super crazy, or maybe they thought that I was maybe just oversensitive, and let's be honest, I was really oversensitive because I too was playing hurt. I was grieving. I was grieving hard, and I was walking wounded, and it was just sitting there, this grief was sitting there right underneath my skin. I mean, the guy didn't know that. The other people standing out there patiently waiting their turn, they didn't know that either. We are in our third week of our worship series called If God is Love. Now, the first week, we talked about how all religion is actually small religion, and love is not just what God does, but love is who God is. And last week, we talked about if God is love, then you are God's beloved. You are the recipient of all of that love that God has to give. And so today, we're going to take it one more step further. If you're God's beloved, then what do you do with it? If you have received all this unending love and grace from God, what do we do with it? Now, playing hurt. Playing hurt is essentially means that someone is physically, emotionally, mentally, or maybe even spiritually compromised. They're not playing or living up to their full capacity. They're wounded, and often sometimes it's just kind of below the surface. They look fine, like they're not bleeding or anything, but they're compromised. They're hurting. And my friends, here's the truth. I think that every single one of us in some way, somehow in this world, I think that we are playing hurt. We have all are living as hurt people. We're all walking wounded. You see, because we all have pain. We all have hurts. We have grief. We have disappointments, shame, and trauma. We are all playing hurt. We all have these hidden wounds that we're just trying to muscle through with perseverance or grit or sometimes just plain stubbornness. We say things like, oh, I'm fine. I'm super fine. And we smile through the pain, or we just try and walk it out. Or sometimes we just shove the pain down. We shove it down so deep and pretend like we're all good on our own. Or sometimes we numb ourselves. We numb ourselves with scrolling through social media or news on our phones. Or we numb ourselves with gaming or alcohol or Netflix or whatever it takes to anesthetize our pain, to numb our hurts. Yet while we're playing hurt, the injury is still really just there. It's really there just below the surface. You just can't see it. We have hurts like sadness over an aging parent's cancer diagnosis, or grief over a friendship that's ended because of politics. We have hurts like anxiety over trying to keep up to everyone's expectations, or exhaustion from the mental load of all the kids' activities. We have hurts like anger over lawsuits between ex-spouses, or loss over your partner's increasing forgetfulness. We have hurts like frustration over how hard it feels like our world has become, or confusion about what to do with your kids' struggles in school. We have hurts like irritation that you didn't prioritize your own health when you were younger, or we have hurts like scars of what your parents did to you when you were a kid. You know you're playing hurt when all of a sudden you find yourself blaming someone or something or yourself just to discharge some of the emotion behind it. Or you find yourself judging someone, something, or yourself, just to feel like you have some kind of sense of control or superiority in the world. You find yourself depressed and resentful. Or sometimes you just toxic positivity sedate yourself into trying to pretend like these aren't very real pains, that these pains that are just under the surface, that they don't exist. So you just try and make it seem like everything's just fine. And on top of all of our individual hurts, together we have experienced a collective trauma in our world. It's like we were playing the game, then all of a sudden COVID came out of nowhere and knocked the wind out of us, and we've been limping ever since. We aren't able to do life to our full capacity, and we are compromised because it's a lot to process and deal with all the things that have happened in the past couple of years. And so many of us are still trying to play like nothing has happened, all the while we are limping around or trying to suck it up, buttercup. But let's be real. There are some real wounds of grief over what we have lost collectively as families, as a church, in our workplaces, in our society. Those hurts are just right under the surface. But those are some deep injuries. My friends, we're all limping around. We are all playing hurt. In the Bible, in the book of John, Jesus is teaching a group of people in a courtyard, and this is what the Bible says happened. The teachers of the law and the Pharisees brought in a woman caught in adultery. They made her stand before the group and said to Jesus, "Teacher, this woman was caught in the act of adultery. In the law, Moses commanded us to stone such women. Now, what do you say?" They were using this question as a trap in order to have a basis for accusing him. But Jesus bent down and started to write on the ground with his finger. And when they kept on questioning him, he straightened up and said to them, "Let any one of you who is without sin be the first to throw a stone at her." And again, he stooped down and wrote on the ground. I just want to unpack this a little bit with you here today. Now, here's Jesus teaching a group of people, and he's got this other group of teachers, the Pharisees, who are there trying to trap him, trying to show everyone that their teaching have superiority over what Jesus is teaching. So then they try and make an example. They drag a woman out who's been caught in adultery. Now, I'm kind of wondering where the guy is that she was committing adultery with and why he wasn't dragged out with her. But nevertheless, they are using her. They are shaming her, and they question Jesus. Jesus, should we stone this woman for her behavior? Should we kill her for what she has just been caught doing? Now here is where Jesus bends down and writes on the ground in the sand. And now we don't know exactly what he is writing, but yet in the biblical history, if there's someone who is accused of breaking the Jewish law, breaking Moses' law, you'd have to put it in writing what they have done, what law they broke, as well as the names of those people that are accused. So maybe it was this that Jesus was writing in the ground. And Jesus challenges this group of Pharisees. He says, "Let any one of you who is without sin be the first to cast a stone at her." But the story continues. At this, those who had heard began to go away one at a time, the older ones first, until only Jesus was left with the woman still standing there. Jesus straightened up and asked her, "Woman, where are they? Has no one condemned you?" "No one, sir," she said. "Then neither do I condemn you," Jesus declared. After Jesus issued his challenge, whatever he was writing in the sand, after this, they dropped their rocks and they walked away. First the older ones and then the younger ones, until the only ones left in the courtyard were Jesus and this woman. I mean, can you imagine what she's feeling right there in that moment? I mean, who knows the circumstances, the pain, the hurt, all the things that she has been going through, the fear that she was just going to die at that moment until this rabbi, Jesus, until this teacher stepped in on her behalf. I mean, can you imagine what she might be feeling? What Jesus pointed out to all of them, to the teachers, the Pharisees, the crowd, the woman, is everyone. Every single one of them has their stuff. Every single one of them is playing hurt. They've all got family history. They've all got shame. They've all got mistakes of the past. They've all got pain because we have all been hurt. Every single one of us. And Jesus shows them right there in that moment that they are all on the same page. They are all playing hurt. And it's my hope that we all realize this together, that we all soak up what Jesus is teaching us here in this story when we realize that the person next to us is also going through some really, really hard stuff, and they need just as much grace as we do, and that they need as much love as we do. I mean, could you imagine if the world understood this? If we quit blaming and judging and numbing, if we quit throwing stones at each other, and instead we acted with care, with kindness, with compassion. Oh man, could you imagine? I know I need a world like that. And I imagine that you need it too. Back in the 2nd century, Christians, they only numbered a couple of thousand in the whole world. And at that time, Christians were the object of great, great suspicion from their neighbors and from the government officials because they had given up the behaviors of their previous lifestyle and they acted like no people that people had ever seen before. And so this caused wild rumors to spread about these Christians, what these Christians were up to and what they were doing. And people questioned it. People gossiped about it. And they thought these Christians were crazy to give up their pagan ancestral religions and believe in this guy Jesus who came back from the dead. They thought that they were nuts. And at the same time, there was this lawyer named Tertullian, a Christian convert who wanted to defend Christianity publicly. And so he wrote about it. And this is what he wrote back in the 2nd century. He wrote, "But see how they love one another. For they are ready to even die for one another. These Christians say, for they themselves will sooner be put to death." I wonder, is this what they would say about Christians today? Would the world say, "See how they love one another"? I mean, sadly, I'm not sure that they would. I think when people would look at Christianity today, they see arguing and blame and judgment. People gathered ready to throw stones at whoever comes their way. But what if? What if we all saw that we were on the same team, that we're all in the same boat, that we're all playing hurt and just trying to get through this life, that we're all in desperate need of compassion, in desperate need of grace, in desperate need of love, in desperate need of a Savior? What if they saw that? What if they saw this in us? What if they identified this in us and said, oh, see how they love one another? See how they understand that we're all just hurting, and then they work to care for one another. See how they seek to understand rather than to judge. See how they think of themselves less than they take, and they give of their time, their resources, and their energy instead of keeping it for themselves. See how they love one another. What if the world saw us like that? What would that look like? At Chase's lacrosse game, it was really hard to watch the injured kid trying to continue to play the game. He was really pretty much unable to run, and he was limping. And simultaneously, he was really trying hard to get into the game, but also to sort of stay out of harm's way so that he didn't get injured any further. And as parents on the sidelines, we all had opinions, because that's what we do when we're watching games. Some parents were like, oh, he'll be fine. And other parents were like, maybe we should just forfeit. Everyone seemed to have an opinion, but we all just sort of watched with grimaced faces, with winced faces, hoping and praying that he didn't get hit or injured even further. But yet on the other side of the field, there was this kid from the other team who got up off the bench and went and talked to his coach. And while the whole game was still going on in front of us, and I watched as he talked to his coach, and his coach gave him a little nod, and he sent him. And then he went over and he talked to our coach for just a minute. And our coach called a timeout. He brought our whole team over, and he had a conversation with them for a minute until the injured player shook his head, and then he took off his jersey. And then the kid from the other team took off his jersey too. And they switched. He put on our player's jersey, and then he went out and he played for the other team while our injured player got to sit down on the bench. And as parents, we watched this all unfold, and we just clapped. We clapped proudly. We hooted and hollered by this kid's compassion, by his willingness to see the pain of another person and go out and take his place. And he went out and he played that game bravely like his life depended on it. And I tell you what, I cannot even tell you who won the game, because who cares at that point? And as I was embarrassingly crying in front of the auditorium doors, an acquaintance of mine, somebody I had met sometime, her name was Sandy, she walked by me, and she had known from Facebook that my mom had recently died, and she came over and she saw my tears, and she came and she put her hands right there on my shoulders and looked at me in my eyes, and she said to me, Angie, I've lost my mom too. And I just nodded. And I was really afraid to speak because of the flood of grief that might just come out of me, or the anger that just might spill right there on the floor in front of all these people. And so she put down her coat and her jacket, and she just stood there. She just stood with me at my door and helped me finish my required volunteer shift. See how they love one another? Can you imagine if we did that? Can you imagine how our families would change? Can you imagine how our community would change if they saw a reflection, just a glimmer of God's love in you? If they saw just a little hint of God's grace in you, see how they love one another. If they pointed at your marriage and said to each other, see how they love one another. Or they look at your family and they see something special there, and they say, see how they love one another. If they looked at this church and said, see how they love one another. I want some of that. I need some of that because I am hurt. I'm playing hurt. Can you imagine how the world would change if they saw us loving each other with compassion? My friends, if God is love and you are God's beloved, then we get to love one another always. Amen.
Why are you striving these days? Why are you trying to earn grace? Why are you crying? Let me lift up your face. Just don't turn away. Why are you looking for love? Why are you still searching as if I'm not enough? To where will you go, child? Tell me, where will you run? To where will you run? 'Cause I'll be by your side wherever you fall in the dead of night. Whenever you call, and please don't fight these hands that are holding you. My hands are holding you. Look at these hands at my side. They swallowed the grave on that night when I drank the world's sin, so I could carry you in and give you life. I wanna give you life. 'Cause I'll be by your side wherever you fall in the dead of night. Whenever you call, then please don't fight these hands that are holding you. My hands are holding you. Here at my side wherever you fall in the dead of night. Whenever you call, then please don't fight these hands that are holding you. My hands are holding you. 'Cause I love you, and I want you to know that I love you, and I'll never let you go. 'Cause I'll be by your side wherever you fall in the dead of night. Whenever you call, and please don't fight these hands that are holding you. My hands are holding you. Here at my side wherever you fall in the dead of night. Whenever you call, and please don't fight these hands that are holding you. My hands are holding you. Here at my side, my hands are holding you. Yes, thank you so much for joining us for worship today. Please join us in praying the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom and the power and the glory forever and ever. Amen.
Hey everybody, thanks so much for joining us for worship. If you're new to Calvary, we'd love to have you join our email list. You can do this on our website, www.calvaryalex.org, and click on the button that says, I want to sign up for emails. We've found that this is the easiest way for us to get the message out over all the ways that Calvary is loving one another here in this community and in the world. And here at Calvary, we believe that faith is grown in circles and not rows, and we want you to connect with other people, either virtually or in person, and we do this with Connect groups. Here's Katie to tell you more about it.
Faith is grown and it's deepened when we connect intentionally with one another. When we move beyond the seats at church or our screens at home, when we circle up with a group of others and ask, how does my faith connect with my everyday life? After 2 years of so much isolation, we invite you to come together and form or join a Connect group. These 8 to 12 people will meet regularly from the end of February through Easter. The church has resources and training. We just need you to say yes. I'm ready for my faith to stretch, to deepen, and to grow. Visit our website to learn more and sign up today.
And now, as we close our time together, we're going to close with a time of offering. We're so grateful for your generosity, and please know that Calvary is making a significant difference here in our community and in the world. We are trying to love one another. The ways that you can give, they are on your screen. The first is you can go to our website, calvaryalex.org. The second is that you can donate through Venmo. The Venmo handle is on your screen. The third is that you can write a check to 605 Douglas Street, Alexandria, Minnesota, 56308. Or the fourth is that you can call the number on your screen. We'll help you get it figured all out. Go and love one another, you guys. Thank you.